Thank you very much, Congresswoman Presley. Appreciate your being here. Congressman Donalds, you are now recognized for 5 minutes.
Chairwoman Warren, Ranking Member Kennedy, thank you for inviting me to testify in front of the committee on the important discussions surrounding student debt. Let me begin with one word of absolute truth. Nothing in this world is free. Someone is always paying. Even with charity, if a doctor sees a patient and decides not to charge them, then the doctor himself pays the debt through services provided without being compensated. When our government doles out $2 trillion in emergency spending like we did last month, no matter how good or noble the cause may seem, it is either this generation or the next that must pay the tab. Money that this government spends does not disappear. It's why right now we are nearly $30 trillion in debt. Each time Washington spends money, it adds up, and there will come a day when the bill comes due. And it won't be pretty and may ultimately be the undoing of this republic if Congress is not more prudent in how it spends other people's money. On the topic of today's hearing, Democrats in Congress and the president himself have made it clear that of their desire to cancel student loan debt. This, while clearly a political ploy meant to keep Democrats in power by hoodwinking the American people into thinking their debt won't impose a cost in society, will not solve the problem that all of us recognize needs fixing. If this policy moves forward, it will result in even higher tuition costs for students who plan to go to college in future years, with disastrous collateral damage elsewhere in the economy, including and especially to low-income families and African-American communities. Who should we suppose would pay the hundreds of billions of dollars that are currently owed? Do we force colleges and universities to repay money paid to them for the asset of a college degree? Where would the universities get the funds to pay if students who fund their livelihoods in exchange for a degree so that they can get out and get a job don't actually have to pay for the invaluable education they receive? Or perhaps the wealthiest among us should once again be called to pay more. These are the very job creators who newly graduated college students will need to hire them. If we start taking our money from the rich, this will not save. If we start taking more money from the rich, this will not save the problem. Lastly, do we call upon people who did not go to universities to pay for those who did? Ultimately, it is very likely that this is what the Democrat proposal will do, forcing individuals at the lower end of the income spectrum, which tends to be more Black than white, to pay for privileged students with their liberal arts degrees. A study conducted just last year found that under a universal loan forgiveness policy like the one the president and Democrats in Congress have proposed, individuals at the top of the earning decile will receive more than 5 times the loan forgiveness as an individual in the lowest income bracket. Furthermore, the study determined that households in the top 30% of the earnings distribution will receive almost half of all dollars forgiven. I'm no stranger to student loan debt myself. In fact, at this very moment, I still have student loans and I'm paying them back each month. I wouldn't be here without my education from Florida A&M University and Florida State University, from which I am incredibly grateful. There is no question my education was worth far more than what I am still paying back, and it is my responsibility to pay for it. But as you know, not everyone who attends college ends up with a degree that is worth the dollar spent attaining it. Time is too short to deliberate here today what types of degrees are worth more than others. But it is time we look to ensure that public dollars spent on the education of our people have a positive return on investment. That's not to say that everyone should not be able to choose whatever field of study they desire. But if public dollars are involved, there needs to be a correlation to the economic good of the individual. That said, the priority of this Congress and this committee should be on controlling the ballooning costs and expenses of colleges and universities in our country. A 2017 study by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York found that for every dollar of subsidized federal loans, tuition increased 60 cents. If the ultimate goal is to increase the cost of going to college, the Democrat plan will do just that. This is irresponsible governing, and it is something we must all fight against. Once again, I am grateful to have been invited to participate in today's hearing, and I encourage all of us to look at the very real problem of the rising costs of tuition and seek to address this in a way that is not a short-term fix, but a real long-term solution. Thank you.
Congressman Donalds, thank you very much for being here with us.